Welcome, thank you. We do have a very packed agenda tonight with a lot of data. This really will be our last data sharing meeting. And next week, we'll be looking at making the decisions and the recommendations going forward of how we will be addressing our sustainable budget. And so with that, do I have a clicker? Oh, is it? Oh, where's the little? Oh, sweet. Okay, thank you. I'm thinking through mine, then I could close that. All right, so our vision and mission statement. At Pajaro Valley Unified School District, our vision is every student will graduate ready to share their unique skills and abilities and be a positive contributing member of their community and their world. And our mission is that we are committed to cultivating a nurturing environment where every student thrives academically, socially, and emotionally, empowering them to flourish in a dynamic and evolving world. And a huge thank you to all of our members of the Sustainable Budget Team, all of the many hours that you have put into this process, both in the meetings, and now we gave some homework. And so people engaged outside of the meetings. So thank you for all of that. We could not be making these decisions without input from a very dedicated community. So thank you. And the purpose of the Sustainable Budget Team is to make collective recommendations to the Board of Education on how we use our resources to best serve students and maintain fiscal solvency in the face of declining enrollment over the next decade. And then the Sustainable Budget Team will present recommendations to the Board of Education at the first January 2025 meeting. And that meeting, with approval from the board on December 18th, because we'll have a reorganizational meeting, and then that will be when we look at the dates and calendar them for the year, but we're anticipating that date to be January 15th. Yes. Yeah. Yes, the new board will be sworn in on December 18th. Okay, our norms that were developed by all of us on the very first evening together were that students are our top priority in decision making, that we all here at this table have equity of voice. No one person is more important than another. Listen to understand, do not listen to respond. Be brave and ask questions. This should be a very safe space where we can feel empowered to use our voice and feel very comfortable sharing our thoughts. Honor diversity of community and assume positive intent. And I think as we get closer and closer to looking at those recommendations, these are going to be more and more important for us to remember. And then here's our problem statement. So this is the statement we are seeking to solve through this process. PVUSD is facing a significant challenge due to declining enrollment and the loss of one-time pandemic funding. To address this issue, we must reprioritize and reimagine our services to scale effectively and maximize available resources. Our goal is to maintain high-quality educational offerings while pursuing equitable access for all students. To achieve this, we must implement solutions with transparency and ultimately position our district for success in a sustainable manner. And we have been using the FIST to 5 process to gain consensus. This process will also become more important in the next 2 meetings that we have as we look for what are we recommending to the board. And so right now, we are still on step number 2, gathering and analyzing information and data. This will be our last time on step number 2, unless there's any particular requests for data for the next meeting, which we will honor as we've been doing for each of these meetings. And then when we gather next, unless we have data requests, which we'll go over, we'll be looking at, okay, what are some cause and solutions, some potential causes, what maybe has caused some of this, and then how do we seek to make the recommendations to fix it. Okay? Yes.
I have a request for our energy bills for the last 5 years, please.
Okay. Could we start, it looks like we're going to start a parking lot and then we'll put that there. The energy bills are something that our board has asked for as well. Yeah, great. Okay. And then we are aligning everything that we do to our district goals. And this is very exciting because our district goals our new ones were just approved by the board at the last board meeting. And so this is a change from our previous sustainable budget team meetings. These are the new goals that were adopted into board policy at the last board meeting. So that's exciting. So they've changed a little bit. And these goals were created by first myself and cabinet. And then the goals went to our teaching and learning team, which is district level leadership. And then the goals went to the leadership team, which is 130 managers in the district. The goals then went to the PVFT Curriculum Council, and the council brought them out to their site. And the goals also went to our CSEA leadership. From there, all those different groups that I just stated gave feedback, and we went through several revisions. I think in the end we were on version 5, so we really did take people's feedback and recrafted them based on what we heard. The last set of feedback after all of our district was able to have an opportunity to touch these goals was to the board. The board saw that. They had 2 bits of feedback that for me to adjust. I adjusted them and brought them back at the last board meeting, and now they were approved. So these are goals that we should all be very proud of. These are goals that we all collectively own as a community, as a parent, as a teacher, as a classified staff member, as a cabinet member, as a community member. These are the goals that we all own. And these are my goals as a superintendent that will be a part of my evaluation. They will actually be my evaluation. So new and improved over here. All right, and everything we do has to align to our LCAP plan. And as I explained before, the LCAP stands for Local Control Accountability Plan. It is the plan that outlines our actions and strategies that we would be using to meet the goals. And it specifically states how we will be using our funding to meet those goals as well. Every district is required to do one. They are a 3-year plan. They get updated in totality every 3 years, but along the way they do experience revisions because sometimes it's like, oh, wow, that's actually not the thing we needed. We might need to adjust. And every time there's an adjustment like that made, it needs to go to the school board for approval. And these were the core values that this team stated collectively together that we would use to be our guiding set of values for our sustainable budget team. And so we said, number 1, first and foremost, we would be student-centered. Number 2, we were going to ensure equity and access. Number 3, we would prioritize our core educational goals. And number 4, we would consider long-term educational investments. Long-term investments being what things do we engage in that get us to where we need to go over the long period of time. And then we ranked what our priorities would be based on different areas where we had allocated funding, either with ESSER dollars, the COVID funds that are now sunsetting. Most of them have actually sunsetted. And then how were we also looking at the declining enrollment? And things that we maybe needed to adjust due to that declining enrollment. And so our rank ordering, this is what our different groups put in, and this is what our set of priorities ended up being. So first and foremost was teaching and learning in that core educational program. Second was visual and performing arts. Third was enrichment opportunities, and this group called those out specifically as athletics and field trips, outdoor activities. Fourth was mental health. Fifth was career and college connection, like college visits, college and career centers. Sixth was family resources, like medical, socio-emotional, food security. 7 was educational options, meaning like online learning. What other opportunities do we give for our students in terms of having choice within how they receive their education? We talked about the California framework. This is the third time we're bringing this to this team. And that California framework is incredibly important because this is what we as an educational organization are responsible for providing for our students. There's 3 areas that are kind of the main areas of what we need to focus on, and that's math, science, and English and language arts. There are other pieces integrated into that framework, but those are kind of the 3 big priorities. Now, other things that we do are services that we provide to help students access the core part of what we do. But our main responsibility is that reading, English, language, arts, science, and math. And this is these data percentages I'm showing to you, which you've seen now for the 3rd time again, is the results of our accountability measure with the state of California. We must use testing in 3rd through 8th and 11th grade every year to monitor our progress in math and English language arts. And as you can see, we are performing under the state of California. We are performing under the entire county of Santa Cruz. And compared to similar sized school districts, we are performing under their performance mechanisms as well. And that was similar size school districts as well as similar demographics. This is the dashboard summary that shows key areas that the state of California looks at. The colors indicate our progress. The way progress is monitored is if you show growth in a particular area. So it's not like, oh, you have to meet this particular goal. It's just, are you making progress? And so where you see red, it means that we did not make progress or maybe even decreased. Where you see green, that means that we did demonstrate progress. Yellow and orange are demonstrative of not a lot of progress, a little bit, but not a lot. So as you could see, we have a lot of red in certain areas. This also pulls out the data so that we can see it by student group. How are we serving our student groups as well? And you've seen this. This is the 3rd time as well for this data. Okay, so we do have some things that we must adhere to as a school district. These things are the law. They are in Ed Code. We do not have liberties to make adjustments with them. One of those is that we have a requirement to provide 180 days of instruction for our students, and we have to meet a specific number of minutes each year within each grade span. Oh, there should be one more with that. I'm not sure, maybe it got hidden, but that we have to meet is actually under the number of minutes of what's recommended in each of the content areas. So if we were to follow the recommended, there's only one law we have to meet that isn't a recommended number of minutes, and that's actually PE you must do this number of minutes of PE. The rest there's flexibility in. So we actually have more content area to cover with our students than minutes we have in the school day. So it's a little bit challenging there. All right, so we did have a request for information at our last meeting, and that was to see what district office staffing looked like. We've looked at staffing ratios in our last meeting, and we included some district level, but we didn't include a ton. And so today we're gonna go over a couple of different things. We're gonna look at district level staffing pretty much in totality. What we did leave out with district level staffing is some of our programs that run in a self-sustained budget. So for instance, our ECE, our early childhood education budgets, there is no wiggle room in those budgets. Those budgets are designed to provide certain services, and that's what they're for, and you cannot move that money out of ECE into the K-12 system or anywhere else. They have to live within ECE. So it's like a self-sustaining program. Adult education is another area where that funding is meant to run the adult education programs, and that is all. You can't move that around and say, oh, we had less money spent in adult ed, we'll use it to help our first graders. It doesn't work that way. So we did not look at that one because that's not really an area where we can make reductions. Another funding source that we don't really make reductions in is our title dollars. So our title dollars are dollars that are very restricted. They must be used for certain restricted fund, and then some restricted dollars that are meant for our special programs that we run that are generalized programs. We're also tonight going to break up into groups and look at the homework assignment. There were some amazing ideas that came from the homework assignment that might just get our minds thinking about the possibilities for our district. So we're going to look at those. And then we'll close the night with looking at what are the things in our district that we do that are attractive for students, that help bring students into the district, and what are the things that help to retain staff. All right, so here we go. It's going to be a lot of information. You will have time at the end to break into your groups to discuss. We have a parking lot right over here on the wall by the clock where you can ask questions. So even as I'm going through this, if you want to get up and say, oh, I want to request this, I don't want to forget, you're more than welcome to go up and request. And if you have questions, if you could just write them down and I'll answer them at the end. I can go backward and forward to slides, but just for the sake of time, I want to give the whole presentation first and then we could go back, okay? So here we go. All right, so the departments that live in the district office are business services. Business services is accounting, finance, our food and nutrition. You'll notice an asterisk by that because that, again, is a program that we don't touch. We get this much money for it. We have to feed our kids, which is wonderful. We cannot move those dollars from out of food and nutrition, say, oh, we didn't spend all the money on food, let's move it and pay for this XYZ thing. So anytime you see an asterisk, 3 asterisks next to something that's called out, that's because it's a self-sustaining source and we can't use it any other way. So we'll look at business services, food and nutrition falls under that, our maintenance and operations and facilities falls under business services, payroll and benefits, purchasing, risk and safety, and then transportation is also part of business services. Our curriculum and instruction and professional development department has expanded learning, English, history, social and ethnic studies, science, English learner programs, VAPA, and early literacy. Those are all supports provided to the sites and to teachers through that department. We have our educational services department that oversees our teaching and learning coordinators, our state and federal programs, our adult education programs, migrant education, early education, migrant and seasonal Head Start, career and technical education, and research, assessment, and accountability. And then we have our human resources department, which oversees our certificated and classified human resources. Student Support Services Department, which includes our SELPA, our counseling and student services, and child welfare and attendance. And then we'll take a look at the Superintendent's Office, which I oversee technology, public information, and the impact and resource development. All right, so starting with business services, what we did is we looked at what we have and how we are organized, and then we looked at 5 other similar sized, similar demographic districts and compared what was the average. So how did we line up compared to these other districts? We are going to be engaging in a special audit of the district office services, just so we understand, are we functioning at top capabilities? A company called School Services engages in that work, but they are very popular, and so that won't be available. They won't even come to do the study for about 4 months out. So we did the best we could with the resources that we have, which was basically me and my office. And there could be some mistakes with other districts because I was just getting the data that they have and phone a friend. But I just wanted you to know this is not like a professional study. This is our response that we gathered in a couple weeks to provide as for the information request. So in business services, we have a chief business officer, we have an executive assistant, we have a purchasing team, and we have a risk and safety team. You can see on the slide on the right, or the side of the slide on the right, some similar districts that we found and looked at and what they had and what their total FTE are compared to what our total FTE is. Some of the titles are different, but the functions and job descriptions seem to be the same. We have staffing ratios for our accounting team, our finance team, and our payroll and benefits team. And then we pulled out what looked to be similar for other districts as well. So you can see a total of 6 for our accounting team. Next to that, similar sized districts, it looks like there were 6 also, and we were able to get the positions from that district. Not all the time could we find that. And accounts payable looks like 2 in another district. The finance team, we have a total of 10. It looks like another district had a total of 9 in that area. And for our payroll and benefits, we had a total of 7.5. Another district had 8, and another district had 4. We have our transportation department. We have a total of 94 FTE in our transportation department. That's robust. And you can see the different types of positions and jobs that they do. The total in a similar district looked like it was 75 employees. An interesting fact about PVUSD is for a school district, we are geographically large. Spanning 150 square miles. Other districts might span 60 square miles. So our transportation needs just by our geography are going to be greater than other districts. So some of this is a little bit hard to compare, but it gives us an idea of understanding ourselves. Like, okay, why is our transportation team heavy, or is it that there's something else? And so for us, we know it's something else. Now we may be looking at an urban district here that maybe they're concentrated in 4 square city blocks. I don't know. I mean, obviously not with 75, but if you saw something like 30, it might lead to further wonderings. Our curriculum and instruction division has an assistant superintendent, an executive assistant, an administrative assistant, and that administrative assistant is paid partially from the general fund and partially from Title I. We have 3 full-time directors, a coordinator, a district support tech, and then a teacher on special and teachers on special assignment. We have 13 FTE. You can see a similar average to districts of similar size is about a 1-for-1. One thing to note is I could not find in any district a coordinator position. They were all mainly called directors. So that was just interesting. Tech support, we have our tech support assigned to departments. That I did not find that in any other district. That was all just assigned to like the tech, that belonged in the tech department and I guess was farmed out. The Educational Services Division is 1 assistant superintendent, 1 executive assistant, an executive director, and part of that executive director is funded from a grant. 3 directors and 1 coordinator, as well as department tech support. And so very similar to the previous slide, there is not, I didn't find executive director in similar sized districts. It was all director level. And I did not find coordinators in similar sized district. it was all like director level. And department tech support, again, was assigned all to the tech department. And then we have our human resources division, an assistant superintendent, 2 directors, an executive assistant, an analyst, 5 analysts, 2 HR technicians, and 2 HR specialists. That was similar in the top part. The analyst was a little bit hard to compare because in each district it seemed like they called different positions different things, and I really didn't have time to dig in and look at all the job descriptions and be like, is this an analyst, is this a technician, what is this? But what we did note is that there were a total of 11 FTE pretty much always in other districts, and we have a total of 13 FTE. In our student support services division, we have 1 executive director, we have a director of SELPA, we have 2 coordinator positions, 2 administrative assistant positions, a CWA analyst, a student services specialist, social emotional counselors, mental health clinicians, and then nurses. That's how our department is organized. In other like-sized districts, I did not find an executive director position. They were all called directors. Most districts have a director of special education. I do want to note that not all districts have their own SELPA. We are, I wouldn't say unique, but it's not common. Like every district does not have a SELPA. We are our own SELPA. And so having a SELPA director is only where a district has its own SELPA. But most districts do have a director of special education. We have the SELPA director. So that's because of how we're organized. We have 2 coordinators. Most districts only had 1. Administrative assistants in that department was 1. We have 2, but I do want to note that one of those administrative assistants is due to a grant, and that grant will expire in 2 years. One of our coordinators is also due to a grant, and it's that same grant that funds that, so that will expire in 2 years as well. And then another thing that was unique to us is other districts that I looked through contract out for social emotional counselors and for mental health clinicians. They aren't employed by the district. It's through an agency. And then nurses, it looks like there were about 7 FTE in other districts, and we have 11. I do want to note again, though, with that we are our own SELPA, and a lot of times nurses and nursing support is tied to special education students. When you are not your own SELPA, that often will come from the county, and a district would pay the county for the services. So that's explains that a little bit. And then we have the superintendent's office. So most districts have 1 superintendent. And you might laugh, but I've actually heard of districts having 2. Executive, it would be very interesting, co-superintendents, I don't. Then we have 1 executive assistant, we have 1 public information officer, and then we have an impact and equity officer in the superintendent's office. Other districts have 1 FTE for a superintendent, 2 executive assistants. What I did note is usually it looks like it's 1 executive assistant and then a secretary, or in some districts they called it a receptionist, but it was tied to the superintendent's office. And then most districts of this size do have a public information officer. All the districts I examined did have either an impact or equity officer or a grant writer. However, what was unique for our district is those positions seemed to be tied to somewhere else. Like they were either in the curriculum and instruction side of the house, or they were in the student services side of the house, or other places besides the superintendent's office. So that was a little different for us. Then we took a look at just total district employees. How many employees do districts with similar size to us? And we also looked, it's hard to find complete exact number for number size, but we pulled that information out. So Pajaro Valley has 16,687 students. That is not our K-12 enrollment. That is our enrollment that includes adult education and our ECE programs. Our K-12 numbers are 14,000. But we included all of them because it looked like that's like for how other districts were reporting their enrollment or their students served. And this does not include, did this include our charters, Andrea? I think it did, yeah, because they still come through our general fund. Mm-hmm. So we have 2,383 employees. That includes our classified and our certificated staff and our district office, all the people employed who receive a PVUSD check. And then when we looked at similar sized districts, we have Jurupa with 2,100 total employees. We were able to find their information broken up by classified and certificated, so we put that in there. They have 18,000 students, so a little bigger than us. We looked at Ceres Unified. They have 1,520 staff and 13,000 students. We looked at Chula Vista, which is larger than us by quite a bit, but it does have similar demographics as us, so we included it. They have 2,178 staff. We looked at Turlock. That is where I came from, so that was easy information for me to get, which is why it's there, but it is a similar size district. And they have 1,466 total staff with 13,000 students. We looked at Anaheim Union, which now that's much larger. That's 27,000 students, and that's 2,786 total staff. Modesto City Elementary. So I came from Modesto City Schools. That was where I was employed the previous 10 years from this. They're unique because they have an elementary district and a high school district, but it functions under one school board. So we pulled out just the elementary district data because it's similar size to this district in all its totality. So for their elementary district, they have 14,000 students and 1,600 employees. And then we looked at nearby Monterey Peninsula with less students than us, 9,257, and then their number of employees, 1,097 employees. So it's hard to compare districts apple to apple because every district really is unique. Some districts have a higher socioeconomic base and receive less funding, and some districts have lower socioeconomic, receive more funding, and employ more people. We have a large title dollar amount, and those title dollars are meant to improve and increase services for students. And so districts with higher title amounts will have a higher number of employees as well. So it's kind of hard to do that comparison, but it is interesting to look at what are other districts doing, and a lot of times we can learn from them, which is what the homework was about. All right. We do want to note also that we have had some reductions in district office staff over the last 2 years. So as the sunsetting ESSER dollars were coming and as declining enrollment was coming, district office was making decisions, and even this year we made decisions to begin some reductions at the district level. So we included a slide on that. Prior to my coming on board, there was a reduction in a transportation supervisor, which is a management position. There was also, prior to my coming on board, a reduction of a district technology support technician, which is classified position. I know. It was Silvestre's position. When he left, we didn't fill it. There's a full-time coordinator, which was the academic, social, emotional counseling coordinator position that we closed this year. That was under my superintendency. Full-time admin secretary 2 in teaching and learning, classified position that was closed since I've been here. We made that decision. And then 3 parent educational specialists existed, and we folded that into 2 positions just this year. And we also had a full FTE in the admin secretary for SELPA, which is a classified position that was not replaced. So we've begun doing some reductions. Now, one thing I would like to note is we do not have special education here and analyzed. Special education is a very challenging department to analyze and start saying, okay, we just need to make reductions. The services of special education are tied directly to students who have individual education plans and who need additional supports. And those plans are legal plans that we must follow. And so that's a different type of approach for special education. We do have FCMAT coming. FCMAT is a service provided by the state of California to deeply analyze departments. They specialize in analyzing special education, business services, and human resources. We had a FCMAT study done in human resources this year, and there will be a board report on that probably in January, end of January, on what the findings were and what next steps we can take to improve our human resources department. FCMAT was just approved for our special education department, and they are scheduled to come in February. I think their process will end during the month of February, and we'll probably do a board report in March. That will help us to understand and know what approach we need to have in being highly functional in our special education department. So we're excited about those studies and the results of them. But for now, we're relying on that company to help us in understanding our special education. So that is not here in this presentation. All right. I'm going to go back to this and then just pause and let you go through those slides and give you about 10 minutes. You can talk with an elbow partner about noticings, wonderings that you have, any questions you might have. The parking lot is right over there. If there's something that needs further information, you can ask for it on the parking lot. If there's just little things like, I'm not sure I understand this, then I'm here to help assist and answer any questions. Okay, so 10 minutes, that means at 6:50, we will reconvene and easy questions I can answer. Okay, that was actually 11 and a half minutes instead of 10. So I'm going to ask you to come back center. Were there any questions that anyone wanted to ask right now?
Could we at least get a list of the, thank you. Could we get at least the number of administrators in the SELPA? And all of who would fall under in those administrative roles.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You could probably get that by the end of this night.
Thank you.
Yeah. That would be great. Thanks. Yep. Any other questions? So I don't know if everyone heard that, but there was a request for how many administrators are employed in the SELPA. Which is actually 3. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I had to count in my brain for a minute how many that was. I'm like, wait, am I forgetting someone? That are special education identified. Yeah. I don't know the exact number offhand, but what I do know is that our identification rate is 17.9%.
Yeah, of our total population, but of the that could include your the ECE, but would that also
that would include any child receiving any type of special education services? It's a good question and a good point, because we do provide speech and language services and other occupational therapy to our early childhood education students. We are also responsible for providing special education services to students in our attendance area attending private schools. Mm-hmm. And charter schools too. So that includes all those numbers as well. Yeah. Yes. Well, home and hospitals outside. Well, sometimes that's inside and outside of SELPA. It's both. You could be on home and hospital and need home and hospital services without being a special education student. Okay, yes, Nora.
Just curious for clarification for bus trainees being 11 full-time positions. What does that mean?
Those are people who are, I think that should be trainers who train. It might just be an accident. Yeah. How is that happening? Yeah, we actually have a really amazing program in that we do train bus drivers ourselves, which is amazing. And it is a great, talk about like staff recruitment. That's a great way to recruit because we offer the training. If you've never been a bus driver before and you want to, we'll train you. Yes, Karen.
I had a question about in the total district employees, the similar size, similar demographic districts. Do we know, you were talking about how the 16,687 is our total students ECE through adult ed. The numbers that are provided for the comparable districts, do we know if that total is their ECE through adult ed or if it's just their K-12?
I couldn't, I know, it was really hard to tell that. I would assume that they are including everything because that's usually how, in the broad strokes, that districts are reporting that. But I couldn't say with 100% certainty, but probably pretty close. The other thing to note is that some districts have very large and robust ECE programs because they've applied, it's kind of similar in some ways to grants where you apply for slots, they're called slots. And some districts have much more robust adult education programs. We actually brag a very robust adult education program, and we have a very robust ECE program as well. So not all districts are the same in terms of that either. So it's hard to do these comparisons on your own, but school services does dig into that information. All right, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move on to our next slide. We also talked about ideas of and ways that we as a district look to retain our staff. And some of those things, I don't know if anyone's been following the elections and election cycle, but our Measure M bond, our general obligation bond, is looking likely to pass. I'm not celebrating yet, but it is looking likely. Our last update, we were passing at 57.51% in Santa Cruz County, and we were at 63% in Monterey County. So we span two counties, so there's voting going on in both, so I can get to look at both things. So it's looking very promising. One of the things that we called out in our bond was workforce housing. And so that would be a really great attraction and retention program if we're able to offer that. So we're really excited about that possibility. It's looking good. We also offer teacher credentialing support. So when teachers join the workforce, they have to have a teaching credential. But after that teaching credential, they still have to do what's called clearing their credential, which is 9 more college units. Our teachers are very highly educated people, I want to note. And so we do help and support with the clearing of credentials. We have many professional development opportunities for our certificated staff. We're working now to build in professional learning opportunities for our classified staff. That's something that we've noticed is not as robust in this district, so we're looking at that, aside from our bus driver training, which is awesome. And we do have some great things in ECE, but in between, we do want to look at how are we developing our staff and offering professional development for like our office administrators, our nurses, our instructional aides. And so we're working on building what we're calling a workforce pipeline. So we're excited about that work. Our teachers in elementary are very blessed to have release time. Not all districts provide that to their employees, and that is an area where we can brag about. And release time is that our teachers, Thank you to our wonderful PVFT president who helped to get that in. And it is really, it is something to be proud of. Our teachers work really hard. Teachers have a lot of duties on their plate, not just when they are teaching students and in front of students, that contact time with students, but outside of the classroom, they have papers to grade. They have report cards to enter. They have parents to call. And so we have a release time program that gives teachers time in the day to be able to do some of those duties, prepping for lessons, lesson planning, all of that. So that is something that is attractive to teachers and a bragging point to say like, oh, come to our district, we have this for you. We also have prep time in the high schools. So prep time in the high schools is teachers get one period that they are not having student contact time to do some of those duties as well. That one is pretty standard. Most high schools do have prep time like that built in, but not all elementaries have that. So a little more way to attract for elementary. We have collaboration. So there is early release time so that teachers can get professional development during the day as well as collaborate with one another. There are so many studies that the greatest source of professional learning for teachers is from one another, and that release time and collaboration time is really critical. So we're proud of that. We do offer cross-training opportunities, things like the bus driver training, opportunities for different people if they wanted to shadow one another and learn next steps of a job. And then we are working to build a workforce pipeline so that if you are an employee in the district, let's say an instructional aide, that we're providing opportunities and steps and maybe even funding for how do you then get to the next level that you might want. And maybe that next level is a teacher. So we're looking to develop those over the next years. We have a pretty well sketched out program that we can begin implementing for next year. So we're excited about that. So that's some of the great things that PVUSD can be incredibly proud of that we can use to draw people into our district. The what? Oh, our health benefits. Yeah, we did not bring that information in. I can bring that in, but our health benefits is what we would call the Cadillac of Cadillac. It's probably actually more of a Ferrari. Yeah. Yeah. So our health benefits are, and I can actually probably state the best in California. Yeah. So that is something, and if we want to bring more information on that, I can do that. Health benefits are something that does attract people to our district. Yeah. All right. Oops. Okay. And then retaining students. So we offer dual language programs for our students. So students can learn in bilingual programs that are not just subtractive programs, meaning that one language replaces another because they're not reinforcing the native language or the home language. So we do have the dual language programs. They're amazing. We have many CTE pathways. That is a highlight for this district. We have over 26 pathways. We added 2 more this year, so 28, where our students can take coursework within certain areas and earn what we call capstone at graduation. So that's great for them. They could do things like air, sea, land, and space. We have biomedical pathway. These are all high school pathways. But we are looking to see how can we bring those down, a modicum of them, into our junior high so that students can start seeing where their education might be able to take them. We have very robust visual and performing arts programming. The release time that we talked about, that's a source of attraction for employees. During that release time, students get additional opportunities for visual and performing arts. We also have a program called Save the Music, so that our elementary school students are receiving music instruction. And then we have our Prop 28. So Proposition 28 was voted into law, which allocates funding to schools for the purpose of visual and performing arts. That's exciting. And then we have our Measure M bond, if it passes, is going to provide potential opportunities for our students because some of that bond, we talked about that bond being earmarked for teacher housing, but the majority, that's a small portion actually, the majority based on what our community wanted was for facilities, which enhances student learning, CTE pathways, and modernization of classrooms. And so that will help to make our district more attractive. And then we have many extended learning opportunities for our students after school. And this program, these dollars are also starting to sunset, but they will not go away. They're just not going to be as robust. But we've done things like send students and their families to Finland over the summer to help broaden their experiences. So we've done some great things. We probably won't be able to continue with doing things like that, but after school, we do extend the school day to like 6 or 6:30 each evening so students can continue to learn or engage in enrichment opportunities. And then another source of pride that I learned on my Look, Listen, and Learn journey is athletics. Our families really celebrated all of the athletic opportunities that we provide. And so it's interesting in our retaining students, if you think back to what our priorities were, and those 7 things that we rank ordered, they're all noted really in the programming that we do additional for our students. All right, so that brings us to the homework assignment. So we had actually many people submit homework with some really great ideas around many different things. Some of it was adding program. We should think about that, which is great. Right now, I don't know if we want to look at adding when our team is actually tasked with reducing. But sometimes those ideas are amazing because it gives us a lens into like, oh, well, like I said a couple of different times, we can do anything, but not everything. And sometimes the things you're trying to do sunset because, hey, we actually want this thing. So those are important things to look at as well. So we are going to break up into those groups that you have been working with this whole time. And we've prepared a visual sheet that you can look at with people's submissions of the homework assignment so that you can discuss them. And then we're going to give an opportunity for everyone to look at them in your groups and think about, what are the things that really would be worth bringing forward through the sustainable budget team. Okay, any questions about that? So, Andrea, do you have?
So they're all on posters around the room, and it's by category. So the 7 priority areas that you all selected, and then others that emerge.
So what we'll do is you and your group from the past will pick a station. You'll look at and discuss what you see at that station. You'll put a check mark on what you really liked, what stood out to you that's either further research or this is something we should consider. And then I'll move you along to the next one. And then at the end, we'll reconvene. Okay? So it is 7:07. I'm going to start you off with 6 minutes at each station. If it looks like we need longer, I'll expand it. And if it looks like we need shorter, I will shorten it. So let's go get into our group so I could start the timer going.
Community organizations and bring those recreational opportunities to the site.
That was kind of it. So that was it. Sorry.
Thank you, Sue. We were just told there was no audio, so we want people to be able to hear. Oh, for our audience. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want me to hold you good?
Okay. I'll hold it. I'll be Vanna.
So our 2 main things on these posters were pretty much the same as what Nellie had mentioned. So over here, the family resources, just like how to encourage and guide parents more into being more involved. And then, also looking at and talking about like how important it is for children to be prepared when they enter kindergarten, right? So even I would say reaching out and finding those parents when their children are still in daycare, right? And then getting them even just like more exposure to reading books, right? So supporting families. And then the other part, same thing, was the workforce housing, which helps with multiple areas, right? So you're providing housing for employees, potentially childcare, and then also bringing in revenue, right, for the district in rent or whatever form that is, whether we're leasing it to companies or renting it to people to live on. So there were some good ideas there. The example from Jefferson was pretty incredible because it says it houses a quarter of the district staff, and that district has 0 turnover. So, yeah.
You guys want this over there? Or? Okay.
Well, we saw, like, just in the homework assignment alone, that it was kind of hard just finding information on the topic at hand. So I think one of the things that we noticed that to highlight is that we really want PVSD to, like, update and make sure that things are updated in our tech world. So I think that that's important to note, and just making sure that we are meeting parent and student needs in that way in the technical world, right? And one of those ways is making sure that we're expanding the TK world. I don't think that we're meeting those needs right now, and I think that that's something that we can do very easily just by expanding that program and that day for our youngest little bitties, and that would be very helpful for our parents, I think, and at a low cost for us at a district level. A free way that we could do that and save money is by shifting our school calendar. That would reduce our energy costs. It would improve the attendance rate and the health of both students and staff. And that, I think, would also help with employee retention and employee satisfaction. It would increase ADA monies and bring us into a positive level. And that would probably look like something like a week break or a 2-week break in our dreaded October, and or a week break in March, and we would still have that spring break in April, right? So really breaking up the quarters and just looking at that intentionally, and bringing our costs down overall for the monies that we do spend currently in energy, and really being intentional and knowing that ripple effect, and looking at other school districts, the ripple effect is just so grand that it was just too hard to ignore such a simple tweak and something so simple, and it could have such a huge positive effect in a whole district and literally cost us 0 and save us thousands and thousands of dollars.
All right, those are great. I can't wait to read all the things. I read a lot of it, but I haven't read all of it in the comments. Why don't we reconvene to the table, and I'll talk about what our next steps are. I know. There's so many. It's good to research other things. Sometimes we get so caught up in just our own day-to-day, well, this is how we do it, because this is what we've always done, and we forget to look at what might be happening somewhere else. So exciting things. All right, so what our next steps are going to look like, if you look at our sessions, we are down to the last 2. We do need to make a change, and I hope that this change will be acceptable for people. Our next meeting as a sustainable budget team will be December 10th. And then the meeting after that was slotted to be December 18th, but because of a recent law change that happened with school boards and elected officials, I must hold our school board meeting for the organizational meeting and the swear-in of the new board members on December 18th. So that was originally a sustainable budget team meeting. We are requesting that we change that to December 17th. Okay, we'll look at that. The 10th is a Wednesday, the 17th is a Tuesday. Yeah, I think it should be the 17th. Oh, 10th is a Tuesday. Oh, we had to do that because I have a board meeting as well on the 11th. Sorry, it changed. So we had originally had board meetings on December 5th and December 12th or something, and then we had to change those because of the law change. So yes, those are both Tuesdays. So the 10th and the 17th, I will look into why the invite was for the Monday. Okay, let me look and see. I'm going to try to see what is going on. Oh yeah, I see it on there. Huh. I have it on my calendar for the 16th and the 17th.
Yeah. Invite went out for the.
Okay, well, if everyone's amenable to the 16th, then we'll leave it on the 16th. Does that work? Okay, let's leave it. Since the invite was that, let's keep it where the invite is. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about what next steps will look like. So we're getting down to the point where we want to look at how are we going to address the sunsetting ESSER dollars as well as the declining enrollment. And we do have to face reductions. That's unavoidable. In order to be fiscally solvent, we do need to face reductions. In all the studying of the budget that Jenny and I have been doing, we are now coming up on what we call our first interim report of the year. The first interim report will happen at the December 11th board meeting, and that's when we look at what is the first snapshot of how our budget is shaping up as a district. That's an important report. Based on all the studying that Jenny and I have done with different teams of people giving inputs, what we are looking at is a probably $5 million reduction for next school year. We believe that we will still have another year of reduction to about a similar amount. Okay, so we have to find that $5 million and where it comes from, and that is really the job of this team. We've presented a lot of information over the course of the last 6 meetings, and this meeting included with that, to help in looking at, okay, how might we attempt to do this? So what we think could be the best way of doing that is for Jenny and I to make some combination of recommendations that you might consider. So that we would look at, okay, we can arrive at the reductions in this way. Or maybe we can arrive at the reductions in this way. Or maybe this way, so that you have some ideas. Now, the next meeting that we come to, we'll have those ideas prepared for you. And you may have other ideas, like, well, whoa, wait a minute, could we do it this way? So that's what we'll be looking at. You'll have some time to just sift on that after that December 11th meeting, and then we'll come back the next time for some final discussion about what the recommendations will be to the school board. Yes, Karen.
So are we talking five million, including the funds that are, like, let's say social emotional counselors, for example, are funded through some funding source that is going away at the end of this year? Is the 5 million inclusive of that, or
Yes.
is it all of those things plus an additional 5
No,
million?
it's
Okay,
inclusive.
Inclusive of that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because most of our dollars, where we're at as a district, is most of our dollars have sunsetted. And so we are now funding them from the general fund, and we cannot continue to fund them from the general fund. So some of that will be, and I'm going to take us back to the very first meeting where we looked at some of our community partnerships. Some of those will be recommendations of, is this a partnership? And using the kind of the guide that we established for ourselves, like our first thing that we said is core education for our students. Next thing is we really liked the VAPA programs. Farther on down the list was a variety of opportunities for students. So, yeah, okay. Questions?
A clarifying point, was that $5 million for next school year and then an additional $5 million?
So this team will be looking only at the $5 million for the next school year. Yeah. And I do want to, some of the things that were homework that came up as great ideas for attracting staff also are great ideas at how we attract students. Because one thing with declining enrollment too is how do we bolster our enrollment as well? And so what are some change ideas that we look at that could help us so that maybe we do those change ideas and then the following year we have more students? And that paints a different kind of picture for us as well. Okay? Any questions about that, the process, expectations? All right.
No, sorry, I just had one question regarding the meeting makeup. As we move into the final two, at the beginning of the meeting, is it a requirement because of the recording that we go through all the predecessor agreements? My recommendation or proposal would be, is because we've all been here so long now, it takes 15 to 20 minutes of our time to go through the precursor slides. So
We could definitely
some of
skip
those?
that. Yep, absolutely.
Jump right in.
Yeah, okay. That'll be your homework. Review the precursor slides as homework in preparation for the next meeting. Nellie.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to or ask a question in regard to our TK funding. Like what's the added funding to our ADA for
TK students.
Yeah, and so I think that would be really good information to have, so that we
We
can
can
see.
bring that. It was that TK, the addition of TK was an unfunded mandate, and that's since shifted. And now it's based on age. So when a student reaches a certain age in TK, then it becomes funded.
So it'd be kind of
It's very
neat
tricky.
to know what that amount is.
Like tricky as in
because
hard,
TK
complicated.
is also a choice. So our parents can either choose to keep their child in the preschool program or enroll them in the TK.
Yes.
And so it'd just be good to know in this public
Yeah.
space
We can.
what that amount is, that added amount is.
When you say funded, would it be like an average daily attendance?
It's so interesting. We had this discussion at the beginning of the year with Cabinet to make sure everyone was clear on the understanding. So what happens is our TK students come in at a certain age range. When they hit a certain age, then the funding comes for that student, and it's like a prorated, is what my understanding is. But Jenny could explain it much better than myself.
Do we know what the age is? Like, are they 4? Are they not funded? And then at 5 they are?
I
Because
think
they-
I think it's actually a 3 to 4 because now there's
Okay.
actually
Some
some.
that can start at 3, yeah. Okay, so at 4 the funding starts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very complex.
Okay.
Yeah, when TK was first started by the governor, that when he said it mandating TK as an option, is what we call in education an unfunded mandate, meaning that you needed to implement this program at a certain level by a certain time, but there was not funding associated for doing so. That has changed now, so that's good. But we can bring that, the rest of the information back. Okay, it is 8:00, And I just want to thank you so very much for all of your time. And we will see you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, if you do have additional requests for information, you can go ahead and email me. All right. Thank you.